think we might get started, and then we'll just let everybody kind of fill in as we go. Um, all right. Can you guys see me yet? I'm gonna turn on my camera.
I see you yet.
Oh, not yet. Okay. All right. Thank you for answering. Let's see here. Zoom's kind of derpy, huh? A little bit slow for me. Cannot start video. All right. Well, let's see if I can start video if I do this. Can you see me now?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. All right. Okay. So welcome everybody. I think we have a lot of new faces and people who have been here before as well come in. Oh, there you go. So we've actually made an update to the game today. So we're going to be able to show off some new functionality, but a lot of what we've added is cosmetic, and the really good stuff's coming next week. So if you're opting in, turn on your video, turn on your audio, but I mean obviously keep your audio on pause until you get a question, and we'll just randomly. You might go twice. We're gonna like randomly choose people using a kind of random generator, just so everybody's awake the whole time. And obviously we have surveys at the end if you guys want to do it a little differently. Every group's different, and we're meeting often enough that you guys run the show, and we'll do kind of what you guys feel is most productive. So I think it was how do you pronounce your name, Hyder?
I do by accident because I am just relaxing.
Okay, nice to meet you. We missed you last week, so it's good to see you.
It's our first week.
Yeah. Very welcome, and I hope you enjoy it.
Thanks.
Yeah. So good luck on your exam, man. That's exciting. Have you taken step 1 yet?
Yeah, I've given my step 1 pretty recently, so all that knowledge is still fresh.
Oh
So
wow.
I just want to like get a jump start and just like leap dive into.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
All right, you're gonna be very sharp. You're gonna have to help us out. So let's do it. So I can't see the screen, just the whiteboard. Oh, good point. Thank you for mentioning. So let's see here. I'm going to. So as snazzy as our whiteboard is, it's coming to an end here. Continue. All right. So screen. Here we go. Can you see that? See my screen now? Yes.
Yeah, it's fine.
Cool. All right. So awesome. All right. Let's see who we got. So we got Asim, and we got Saeed or Hussein. Do you prefer to go by Hussein, or are you just being nice to the other Saeed as we went through last?
There might be more Saids, so you can call me Hussein.
All right, I'll call you Hussein. All right. So let's see. We're adding people as we go here. Okay. Rowenda, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, great. So do we have a number name generator yet?
Yes.
Okay, all right, awesome. I think this week we're actually going to have illustrations as well as figures, which is to say we're going to have explanation images, which is a huge change. So let's get started here. So what do you guys want to do? Do you want to be a... We can be a dwarf, a knight, an assassin, a ranger. I think the ranger might be a little more risky because we're working on a kick functionality, and you can get trapped as the ranger and not be able to move away. So I think it's between these 4. We can be anything. I'll try the. Let's try the assassin for good measure. We'll just we'll try something new. Yeah, but I want to name us. I want to name us Group C here, so that our game log says something according to what we are. Okay, so anybody who's new, I just wanted to introduce them to the software and kind of what we do each week. The idea is to facilitate learning in step 2 and creating study partners and kind of establishing what my video game is going to be. It's a medical education video game that promotes kind of, it's not intended to be a primary resource or compete with UWorld or anything like that. It's kind of intended to be the flint to a fire that is your curiosity at the end of the day, so that you can get an extra 3 or 2 hours in through sociality and gamification. And through that, you kind of meet people and maybe study with them for step 3. And people who are studying for step 1, 2, and 3 would be able to, through multiplayer, play in the same game and kind of enjoy themselves instead of getting study fatigued and then study despaired and then having, kind of valence towards scoring poorly on their exams when they're first starting out that is negative. So I always do that spiel at the beginning. And what we do is we just call out random names and answer questions. The questions inform how many action points you have, which are these green points here, and these guys. And if you run out, you can't move, you can't attack, you can't speak, and so you need those. And so the confidence that you answer questions, the speed at which you answer questions, and the correctness will inform how many of those you get. And so that's a long story short. So let's choose some skills here real quick. We have this is just a beginning thing you do in the beginning. Ordinarily you'd start out with a skill and then so let's try. We can taunt enemy, poison weapons. So I'm gonna taunt. No, I need to do damage. So let's do backstab here, and then we'll do sinister strike here. So I'm using all my skill points. I ordinarily wouldn't have a ton of skill points when I'm starting out, but for the purposes of showing the game, we just give you a ton of skill points and we want to be able to kill everything. So now when I look at whether I can move, I can check these squares. I can move here, use a hotkey, move there, and this is Fog of War. So these are points I use to look around. So I'm looking at embankment, I look at the Fog of War, and so here I have 2 enemies. All right, I got a spider. We gotta stop getting spiders, guys. I need to show you some more art because it's kind of neat, but they're going to attack us soon. So, so I'm going to put this down to, it'll just be the person talking that you see over here, and let's answer a question. So we have some new art here. So who's going, Rwanda? Is anybody?
Yes. Okay. Asim. Let's try Asim.
All right. So Asim, do you want to read it or should I?
You can read it.
Okay. All right, I'll give it a shot here.
See.
Yeah, this is not your average everyday favorite question, but we'll try. A new study shows significant association between patients with BMI over 40 and diagnosis of diabetes. So it gives us the odd ratio at 7.37, and we have the confidence interval is between 6.39 and 8.50. So compared to non-diabetic patients. So these are people with diabetes and a BMI over 40 compared to non-diabetics. So which of the following hypothetical studies most likely yielded these results?
So I'm thinking, just looking at the question, it's probably a case control study because they mentioned the odds ratio. So between all of these options, I would probably say okay, so C is definitely out because that's a cohort study. E,
Okay, all right. So what confidence would you say? And how would you justify E?
I'm justifying it because I'm looking at it as a case control study, and like just looking at them, I think E is the only one that's a case control study, because you have your cases, which are the people with diabetes, and then you have your controls, which are the people without diabetes, and yeah, you're comparing them to see the BMI. So yeah, I would guess E, because that's the only case control study in there, and like the odds ratio is associated with
Right. That's great. So
and
this,
my confidence interval would be probably
you'd say green?
um, yeah, I would say green, because that's I'm confident in this answer.
Okay, all right. Okay, so let's say green here. Nice, nice. So yeah, so I think your justification was that they have a group that has a disease, right? And then they have a group that that is non-diabetic. So you're using a case and a control to compare the cases.
Right.
Um, so we got some action points from that. It looks like we got 3 action points. So I guess we should attack something. Um, in order to attack, though, we're not a wizard anymore, so we can only attack on the diagonal because we're kind of like an assassin character. So I'm going to move over here and attack this spider here with one of our spells. And you'll see that it uses an action point just to attack him here. And so we're almost done killing this guy. So I wanted to address, Saeed, I think you're absolutely right to ask that. So the point in the beginning of the YouTube video, the point of the consent forms is to try to address like the possibility that we use a clip from one of these videos we are recording. And so the idea is to, none of you guys, even if you were the rudest person on earth, I would not post a video without, I would not post a video that showed you guys in a light that was negative. If something happened in the video where it was embarrassing or anything like that, it's not about whether I like you. It's not about whether it's a promise that I make to everyone that I'm only showing whether you answer a question. Sometimes you get the question wrong. Sometimes I get the question wrong, and I would post things that have that sort of content in it. But I would be very, very discreet. But the idea is that we're doing it for free. We want to promote the game, obviously, and that's a benefit. But we also want to have the videos to demonstrate value for the game. And so the consent forms are an attempt to try to like document that if you guys are willing to do that. But kind of over the course of discussing whether you want to come to the video, we kind of ask you in written form kind of if you're willing to be shown. And so kind of throughout the course of staying in the video and kind of answering questions and things like that, there is an assumed kind of consent involved with staying. And so I want to be very clear about that, make sure nobody gets caught with their, not literally, but with their pants down. It's an expression. Because I just want to optimize everybody's learning, and I think if somebody's coming on video and they're showing their stuff, if they get something wrong, they might feel self-conscious if somebody else comes on and says, no, the answer is E, and you don't know who I am. So that's kind of the idea behind that. So we're not currently taking anything but donations. We're not being paid for our time, and we're not advertising anything but the game that you're seeing here. And the idea is to bring everybody up, you know? So I hope that answers your question. Let me know if it doesn't. And I want to know more about what you guys are curious about. So do not be shy. Ask questions away. Rowenda, do we have another person we can answer a question?
Yes.
All right.
Dr. Nifin.
Dr. Nafim, are you here? Are you there? Calling Dr. Nafim. Okay. All right, Dr. Nafim, you're very welcome to rejoin. We're gonna say we're gonna just ask you to rejoin through the link when you come back. So we just have a waiting room. It's not like they're kicked out. All right, next one.
Okay. Hussein.
Hussein. All right, let's do it. All right. So you want to read this one or should I?
If I'll read this, then I can answer it better.
All right. Okay.
Because it's a conscious. So, an 82-year-old man is currently being managed by internal medicine service agrees to be examined by medical students as part of their training and physical examination. He's visited by a small group of medical students under the instruction of preceptor and allows the students to make observations. They find that he has biobasal liver crackles that are most common during expiration as well as some wheezing. Furthermore, he coughs up some sputum during the examination. The sputum is found for rust color. He doesn't report any pain and no skin findings or seen. Following is most closely associated with the cause of this patient's physical exam findings. So, options are smoking, protein deficiency, pregnancy, and RS deficiency, left heart failure, tall in males, long bone fractures. So I'll exclude tall in males because they're probably implementing a pneumothorax, which isn't the case over here. It does seems like a left heart failure because those, you can say that. So E doesn't really make sense why long bone fractures would be associated with this condition. So bilateral retractile occurs in left heart failure. Alright. A rust color sputum.
Yeah. So what is a rust color sputum?
Hemoptysis, you call that, right?
Yeah, but also kind of an association with a certain type of pneumonia, maybe. Right?
Is it mentioned to certain type of what?
Kind of pneumonia.
Are you referring to the current jellies?
No, that's like aspirational. If you had like, so you could have a Klebsiella.
That's current jelly.
Yeah. So there's two current jellies. There's actually intussusception is a current jelly, but that comes out of your rear end. And then there's red currant jelly from Klebsiella in pneumonia. And so rust is usually like pneumococcal. Right?
Alright. Okay.
So one of the things I like to do occasionally just as a test taking strategy is like, what category, it's just like Asim did, where I like that strategy where he's like, this answer represents case control. So what does D represent? Tall and thin males, you know?
Marfan hypothesis?
Potentially, yeah.
Or sometimes pneumothorax occurs in both of them.
Or like cachexia from cancer, or you know, it's just a demographic potentially, not as much obesity. So like if you had COVID, you'd be more likely to get COVID if you had more adiposity. But what are you thinking with so you were thinking bibasilar crackles is a sign of like pulmonary edema?
Yeah.
And yeah.
Like there's this a physical finding of pulmonary edema or heart failure or something that you get. Most of them in macrophages. But like I kind of got confused with the respiratory sputum and the heart failure cells. So that's why consciously my mind is going towards the option C.
Yeah, I think heart failure cells you're not going to see unless you. Did they mention it explicitly that there are heart failure cells? Because those are going to be like hematoxylin, like those are going to be like definitely in heart failure. But I think that's going to be more a histological finding.
Yeah.
So the rust is like hard to say. So if you had a CS deficiency, what would that look? Would you be hyper or hypocoagulable?
We'd be hypercoagulable.
Right. because you'd be so you'd be deactivating fewer fewer coagulative factors.
Mm-hmm.
So you could get be similar to taking warfarin where you have a bleeding risk into your lungs, bleeding in
This
quotes.
is the opposite of what we would get over here. Right? This wouldn't cause that for a TNS deficiency.
Yeah. You're saying a CS deficiency? Yeah.
Wouldn't cause that.
Also, he's 82. You know? It's like a CS deficiency could be a genetic cause, you know? It's like, why is he 82 and he's just learning this now? You know? So, let's say that he had rust-colored sputum and we knew that that was something to do with potentially high likelihood of it being pneumococcal. What would that suggest to you?
Pneumococcal. Immunodeficiency, not really, though.
Yeah, no, that's like community acquired, most common. So it's like even if you're not immunocompromised, and if you're immunocompromised, is actually the most common anyway.
Mm-hmm.
There's a trick they like to play on you where, so we got to choose one. What are we thinking?
Okay.
This is a good exercise because yeah,
I would go with smoking in this.
smoking. All right. It's always a good choice, right? How confident are we?
The yellow.
Yellow? All right, let's do it.
Yeah.
All right, I paused it. Okay, so it's left heart failure.
Well,
All right, does anybody want to, do you feel like you can explain why it's heart failure, or we want to try to open it to the group?
you can open the door.
All right, so let's look at the answer too, and we'll just, so pulmonary edema, you're right. Bibasilar inspiration. It lowers your intrathoracic pressure, and it increases the amount of blood that can pass through your IVC and your superior vena cava as well. And so when you decrease your intrathoracic pressure through inhalation, because you're basically increasing the percent of your chest that is oxygen, that is air, as opposed to like lung tissue. And so you're decreasing the pressure on your vena cava, increasing the venous return to your heart. And as a result, you're getting bibasilar inspiratory crackles. That's for your right heart. For your left heart, you're actually you're decreasing the output of your left heart, and so you'll actually decrease murmurs in your left heart and increase murmurs in your right heart when you inspire. And so bibasilar crackles on inspiratory crackles is an interesting finding. We have wheezing, which is an expiratory phenomenon usually, and then rusty sputum. So they're saying that this is just parenchymal, fluid in the lung parenchyma from heart failure, so paroxysmal nocturnal dyspnea and orthopnea. So rust-colored sputum, you're right about blood being in the sputum. Wheezing due to peribronchial edema. Rust-colored sputum is due to rupture of pulmonary capillaries. And so you see that in pneumococcal infections for lung infections because it actually has hemolytic proteins in that bacteria actually cause hemolysis. So let's go again. I think that was a tricky one, honestly. Smoking. Let's see why smoking is associated with emphysema. So it's representing emphysema. That's a good thing to just notice. Like, we didn't know what it was emphasizing. Was it talking about emphysema or was it talking about lung cancer? So it's good to diagnose the question choice, the answer choice, when you're taking the exam itself. So it's good when you're practicing just to say, oh, I got this wrong, but I also didn't, when I chose smoking, know that I was not just choosing the smoking answer, I was choosing the emphysema answer, which is an extra layer of review, just to understand the review that way. So Do we feel like we understand why that was heart failure? Yeah, Asim, do you want to kind of summarize that?
Yeah, so I think I was thrown off by the same reasoning as Hussein was. So I would think the moment I saw the stamp, I zeroed it on like heart failure. But then when I saw that respiratory sputum, I started having second thoughts. But
Mm,
yeah, it makes sense. The reasoning makes sense. Structure, like capillaries causing the blood to go into the alveoli, which causes the respiratory sputum. So yeah, it makes sense now.
yeah,
That's good.
yeah, and I think also my mentioning of the pneumococcal thing, this person doesn't have pneumonia because they didn't mention a fever, so they don't have the criteria to have a pneumonia. So we shouldn't necessarily be thinking pneumonia. So that kind of threw us all off.
Like,
Yeah, so we're still getting attacked by spiders right now. So we gotta so we gotta kill some spiders. Let's see. Rowenda. Who do we have next here?
Vishana. Let's try Vishana.
Oh, Vishnu. Okay.
Yeah, hello sir.
Okay, great. All right. Do you want to read or should I?
Yeah, I'll read sir.
Okay.
So 38-year-old man presents to the clinic who complains of abdominal pain and diarrhea. He reports a long-standing history of the symptoms, except for the time when he attempted a carbohydrate-free diet 5 years ago. The pain is described as stabbing, diffuse, 8 on 10, and is especially worse following food intake.
Right.
Recently, he noticed some numbness and tingling in his feet, but denies any bloody stool, nausea, vomiting, fever, weight loss, or focal neurological deficits.
Right.
What histological findings would you expect in this patient?
Histopathological findings. So, all right. So what do you think the diagnosis is?
Like there is tingling in his feet, numbness is there, abdominal pain is there. So I'm thinking of actually pernicious anemia,
Oh yeah.
B12 deficiency.
Yeah. I mean, he could have a B12 deficiency, right? Um, the so I'm thinking about maybe a slightly different diagnosis as well. Um, but let's talk about the answer choices and see what we think they represent. So what do you think? What do you think A represents histopathologically?
That is actually celiac disease, no? Blunting of.
Exactly. Exactly. So he said attempting a carbohydrate-free diet 5 years ago was the only time in his life where he had an exception to his abdominal pain and diarrhea throughout this long-standing history of the symptoms.
Yeah, so the gluten.
Yeah, so I could tell when you knew that histopathophysiology that sentence is one that you'd probably respond to in a way. Let's talk about the other ones. So what does non-caseating granulomas represent?
Mm, Crohn's.
Yep, exactly. So what does C represent?
That is a Whipple's disease, but it should have arthrasia and cardiac manifestations also.
So you're saying for C?
No, no, no. Like Whipple's disease should have cardiac, arthritis, and neurological manifestations outside. Like I forgot actually.
Yeah,
I think so. Like
for
it should have other things also. Here just abdominal pain, diarrhea, basically just GI associated.
yeah, Crohn's. He would know. I think there'd be a family history. They might have a mention of an autoimmune disorder he had in his past. He might have sacroiliac pain. He could have skip lesions, which would cause fistulas. He could have, potentially have some symptoms of fistulas, and he could even have an ADEC deficiency where he's not able to digest fat soluble vitamins, and so he's having issues that way. It would be a watery diarrhea. It can be bloody, and so Crohn's. It's not as good as the carbohydrate mash here that we have. I think that you like that as well. But what is this? What are these PAS positive foamy macrophages representing? It's kind of a tricky one.
That is not Whipple's disease, right?
What is it?
PAH positive. Whipple's disease.
Exactly. That's a good one. So that's Whipple's, and then normal gastric mucosa jejunum. What does that represent?
Normal gastric mucosa. Oh, that is a macroscopic.
That would be like what?
Heterotropic.
I was thinking like if you had a person that was lactose intolerant. You know, lactose intolerant person would have normal gastric mucosa. They're talking about gastric mucosa, but you know, jejunum as well, normal. So I'd be thinking about maybe a lactose deficiency or something like that. Lactose intolerance, I mean. And then crypt abscesses in descending colon. What does that suggest?
That is an ascending ulcerative colitis.
Yeah, it could be ulcerative colitis, exactly. And so,
But like as you said, the symptoms actually like he was asymptomatic only for the time he attempted a carbohydrate-free diet. No?
right.
Every time that is actually a giveaway.
So how confident are we?
Green.
Green. All right, let's do it. So I think you nailed that one. That was a good one. All right, so let's see here. We're gonna kill a spider. Eventually, this is gonna be multiplayer, and we'll all just play together in this game. That's gonna be about a few months away. But who's next, Rwanda? Should we try Nithin? Are you here?
Yep, let's try Dr. Nathan.
Okay, Dr. Nithin, welcome.
Yeah.
Would you like to read, or should I?
Actually, I'm not able to see the question on it. There's some problem with it.
Oh, okay. I'll read it to you. See if we can give it a shot. You're not able to see the screen?
I'm not able to see the question stem on it.
Oh boy. All right. Can you see me?
I can see you. I can see the whole the game. This thing.
Okay, I'll read it to you. It's a 62-year-old.
What I learned. Okay.
It's a 62-year-old woman. History of hypertension, hyperlipidemia, rheumatoid arthritis. Has elevated serum liver chemistries, and has had 3 months of intense, unremitting itch.
I can see it now.
Oh, good. So they have pruritus that's been, yeah.
Unremitting itch.
Yeah, including chlorothalidone.
Medications include chlorothalidone, atorvastatin,
Yeah,
ibuprofen. Physical exam is unremarkable. Laboratory studies show as per AST of 42, ALT 39, alpha 790, total bilirubin of 0.9, and antimicrobial, antimitochondrial antibody titer 1 to 80. What do you expect to see in the liver biopsy?
right. So what are you thinking so far?
This could be a case of primary biliary cirrhosis.
Great. Yeah, I like that idea. So what do you think about this antimitochondrial antibody?
That is actually positive.
Yeah, antimitochondrial antibody titer of 1 out of 80. So let's talk about answer choices then. So they've raised alk-phos. They have transaminitis a little bit, but they have pruritus. What do you think the pruritus is from?
Pruritus is secondary to bile acid, decreased bile acid reabsorption.
Right.
Probably.
Right, the enteric circulation, right, from the biliary salts. But the total bilirubin is 0.8. So it's decently we'll see what how they explain.
Oh,
Yeah. So what do you expect on liver biopsy? Let's talk about these answer choices. So what would produce the lymphoplasmacytic and eosinophilic infiltration of portal tracts? This is a tough question.
probably some protozoal infection, I guess.
I was thinking potentially a parasite given the eosinophilia, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. What about intrahepatic bile duct obstruction?
That can lead to anything which will cause damage to the liver, alcohol, and any other cause that will cause intrahepatic bile duct destruction.
So you said primary biliary sclerosis, right?
Yeah.
So what do you see in the biliary tree when you have primary biliary sclerosis? I see Asim's nodding his head here.
Yeah, intrahepatic as well as extrahepatic bile destruction in PBC.
You can see like beads on a string. You see kind of the dilatation and stenosis of the
Yeah.
biliary tree, creating kind of a pattern there. So the bile duct destruction is interesting. What about intrahepatic and extrahepatic bile duct destruction? That's both extra and intrahepatic.
That is PBC according to me. That is what
Yeah, that's a pretty good candidate, right?
taking BNC.
So PBC is also highly associated with ulcerative colitis, I believe. Is that right? Yeah. So it seems, yeah. Okay. So I just wanted to make sure I wasn't wrong about that. But so bile plugging and hepatocytes and bile ducts. What does that represent to you? If anyone knows these answers, yell them out to us. You're welcome to. So granulomas in portal tracts. So Saeed says it might be a pancreatic issue. So you're thinking C is PSC.
Yeah, B is, but I think BBC, and C would be BSC.
Okay. So you think you're gonna go? Which do you want to go with?
I'll go with what people are saying.
You go with B as in boy.
Yeah, I'll go with B since my diagnosis is PVC.
So you said D or is this the correct choice for you?
B.
This guy.
Intrahepatic bile duct system. Yeah.
Okay.
PVC.
What confidence do you want to go with?
I'll go with the orange one, the middle one.
The middle one. Okay, let's try it. We'll talk about this one for sure. This is a good one. Oh, nice. All right, we got it. Okay, so we got some. Let's attack the spider before we go over the answer. Okay, so we attack the spider here. It's good measure. So you're absolutely right about the diagnosis. It's PBC, primary biliary sclerosis. This antimitochondrial antibody is a nice, definitely a good thing to have all of those things memorized. The antibodies right before your exam, just memorize all of them, but also probably need them to just get a good feel for diagnosis during studying periods. So let's go through. Let's go through this because it's kind of interesting, and it's a question that I think comes up more regularly than people expect. So Intrahepatic and extrahepatic bile duct destruction is seen in primary sclerosing cholangitis. So we were talking about answer choices including C and B. So let's talk about those. So C was lymphoplasmacytic and eosinophilic. So that's like IG4 syndrome, which is one of a like cluster of disorders that have to do with like
Actually, like after you chose the answer, the options got interchanged, and our option C was actually option A now.
right. So option 3, answer 3 is answer C here. But option A, I think option A is answer 1. Right? We're good. I think we're matching up. They didn't mention answer 2 because we got the right answer, so they're giving us all the incorrects. And then, but PSC, primary sclerosing cholangitis, is chronic onion skinning pattern on portal inflammation and fibrosis on histology. This is just like, you gotta memorize it. P-onca positivity is also associated with it. And so, granulomas in the portal tracts may be seen in a variety of conditions, including sarcoidosis. Sarcoidosis and tuberculosis can cause granulomas anywhere, almost anywhere. And then we have MAC, which is an opportunistic infection seen in HIV often. Then we have fungal infections. And so those are called granulomas because you're not able to destroy them with your NPCs, your polymorphonuclear cells. And then bile plugging in hepatocytes and bile ducts without inflammation may be seen in intrahepatic cholestasis. And so let's see. We can keep going. Let's keep going. Good job, man. That was. I think that was a hard question. I think I'm gonna have to go with Asim answering the next one because we're all right. All right. Okay. So Nathan's back here. Okay, good. All right. So answer. All right. So let's see if we can. So you can take it away if you want, Asim.
I can't see the question yet. I think. Oh yeah, no, I can see it. Okay. In an attempt to create other selective dopamine 1 agonists, a small pharmaceutical company creates a cell-based chemical screen that involves 3 modified receptors: alpha-1, beta-1, and delta-1. In the presence of D1 receptor, no, not delta, it's dopamine. D1
Yeah.
in the presence of in the presence of D1 stimulation, the cell produces an mRNA that codes the fluorescent protein. However, if A1 or B1 receptors are also stimulated at the same time, the cell will degrade the mRNA of the fluorescent protein, thereby preventing it from being produced. Which of the following will best serve as a positive control for this experiment? Well, yeah, so this is a really tough looking question.
Yeah. You keep getting the research ones. So what is a control is being compared to an interventional study, right?
Yep.
And so serving as a positive control, what is a positive control?
I don't think I've come across this before, but I'm assuming it means something that will produce a given result.
I believe that what they're saying a positive control is one that controls for other variables but is being added to, so a positive as opposed to a negative reinforcement would be one that is added or taken away. So a positive control would be a control that is added as opposed to giving somebody a placebo. You're actually adding a drug, but it's the control drug. It's the drug that you would use ordinarily. And so you're testing what it would ordinarily happen. Although you're adding it, to your, alternative drug, which is being tested against it. But that's the best I can do, and I'm not sure on that front. So mRNA of the fluorescent protein thereby preventing from being produced. This is a tricky one. So this is a good one to do right before your exam. This is like the best kind of question because you're trying to answer a question you don't know the answer to. So what do you do when you're answering a question you don't know the answer? Yeah.
You eliminate all the intellects and
Yeah.
end up with the right answer. So to be honest, I'm kind of still processing a little bit. It's not exactly. I don't think I'm gonna be able to answer this correctly.
Don't feel rushed because everyone who's reading this question is going to take as long as you to understand what you're trying to figure out right now. So so I'm still trying to process it as well. So there's 3 receptors that they're testing against one another. There's the presence of a D1 stimulation on the cell produces mRNA that codes for fluorescent protein. So I'm just taking that at face value. Dopamine's binding to a cell. It's probably at the end plate of 2 neurons in the central nervous system, and it's producing a protein that fluoresces. So we're going to see the result of D1 activation. However, if A1 or B1 receptors are also stimulated at the same time, simultaneously, the cells will degrade the mRNA of the fluorescent protein. So the only way to inhibit this protein fluorescing that's going on with D1 stimulation is to have A1 and B1 happen at the same time. And so which of the following best serves as a positive control for this experiment? So let's...
Yeah, so we have epinephrine then.
Yeah. Something that would cause A1 and B1 receptors...
will also be seen at the same time. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, now it makes sense.
Yeah. So which answer would you choose?
I would choose E, epinephrine, and now that you've explained it to me, I think I would be confident that I would be green.
Okay, let's try a green. Yeah, I think that's the way to think about it. I could be wrong. Okay, so I got it wrong. What is phenaldipam? What kind of action does phenaldipam do?
Phenaldipam, I think it's a dopamine agonist.
Exactly.
I'm blanking on this.
You're exactly right. That's not a very highly used drug, so it's good that you know that. I've asked pharmacists and they didn't know what it was. So phenaldipam, phenaldipam's a D1 agonist. Sometimes it's used in kidney failure patients as a antihypertensive, I believe. You had a few drugs. You had bromocriptine. Do you know how that works?
Yeah, bromocriptine is a dopamine antagonist. It's used in that's also dopamine agonist.
Yeah.
It's used in prolactinomas and all sorts of.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah. So bromocriptine is a D2 agonist. Phenaldipam, you're exactly right about phenaldipam. So epinephrine is a non-selective. You'd be exactly right if that's what we were trying to do, which that's the answer I would have chosen if I were you. I misunderstood the question. I think what we were avoiding was having alpha 1 and alpha 2 disrupt the verisimilitude of our dopamine. We're trying to decide how much dopamine is being activated. We don't want alpha 1 and alpha 2 to apparently to disrupt that and cause us not to interpret it correctly.
We just want the D1 agonist. We don't want the D2 agonist, which is why I took bromocriptine is.
Right. So we only want a selective D1. Yeah, so
I use option C wrong.
You what?
I mean, dopamine can also activate D1, no? Like, it can also stimulate D1 receptor and further activate D1 receptors, right?
So they're attempting to create only a selective D1. So although you're right that dopamine would activate both, they don't want dopamine. I think they're going to say they don't want dopamine because it would do D1 and D2. And that's what they're saying for this one. And so Yeah, so dopamine over B1 over A1 is used to treat shock and heart failure. I want to see what they say about phenoldiprom's uses. I want to say that it's used in chronic kidney disease. Um, it's a very short half-life, so it's used. It can be controlled. You know, you add it and then you add more if it's doing what you want it to do. Yeah, so intravenous phenoldiprem is typically used to treat adult hypertension, but it's not approved for children. I think it is used for adult hypertension, but almost never in the U.S. And so you talk to a pharmacologist and they're like, oh, well, that's a really interesting question that you'll never need to know the answer to. What does phenoldiprem do? It sounds like a benzodiazepine. But dobutamine, what does dobutamine do? It's a beta 1 agonist, right? Yeah. And so that's for cardiogenic shock and acute heart failure. I just wanted to go through those because that's a really nice little portrait. So Rwanda, I think it's Vishanav is next. Is that right?
Yes. Right.
Okay. So Vishanav, are you ready?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's do it. Do you want to read it?
Yeah, I'll do it.
All right. Can you see it yet?
Yeah, it's coming. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So 59-year-old man comes to the clinic for an annual well examination. He was lost to follow-up for the past 3 years due to marital issues, but reports that he feels fine. The patient reports, I feel tired, but it is probably because I'm getting old. I do feel a little feverish today. I think I got a cold. His past medical history is significant for hypertension and is controlled with hydrochlorothiazide. He reports fatigue, congestion, cough and night sweats. He denies any sick contacts, recent travel and weight changes, chest pain or dizziness. His temperature is 38.3 degrees Celsius, blood pressure is 151 and his laboratory values are shown below.
All right.
You just probably some HAMA question, I think. Hemoglobin is 13.5, hematocrit is 41, leukocyte count is 25,000, segmented neutrophil is 73, so leukocyte count is increased actually, and band is 8%. So, yeah, basophil is there, lymphocytes are a little low, but yeah.
Lymphocytes is pretty decent.
20 to 40 average, no? So
Yeah. Yeah, so I think we got, so what are you thinking about this portrait here?
I'm thinking of leukemia now, but it should have maybe not typical, right?
Yeah, I mean, what kind of leukemia are you thinking about?
Chronic myelogenous?
You're saying, so there's CML, AML, ALL, CLL. You have.
It's not anyway like lymphocytic leukemia because like lymphocytes are just 15% and it's like more myeloid, right?
Yeah. You're not.
Actually, the leukocyte count is not much elevated. So this isn't a question pertaining to leukemia. This is more of leukocytosis, like the left
Yeah.
side. So you have to differentiate this with leukocyte phosphorylated. No, LAP. Leukemia reaction and then
Yeah.
you have to.
Yeah, you're thinking about leukemia that is myeloid. So you have CD34, right? That is like the marker that almost all of them have, and then you have the myeloid lineage versus the lympho lineage.
His point is like in leukemia we should have leukocytes in the range like 1 lakh or something, no? Like
Anything above
100,000.
50, anything above 50,000.
Yeah, 50,000.
I think the 73% suggests that you don't have a super disproportionately lymphocytic leukemia. So
So it will be probably weak.
Uh,
Also, and the patient has fever right now.
so to ha-
This is more of to an infection leading to leukocytosis rather than a leukemic patient based on the age and all.
And also there is no weight loss and there is nothing like, yeah.
well, we don't know if there's weight loss. There's no weight changes.
He
Yeah.
denies any sick contacts, recent travel and
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So why would he have night sweats?
These symptoms.
B symptoms, right? So 101. So I kind of want to know we shouldn't even be talking about lymphocytes that much because we have the eosinophils are elevated, the basophils are elevated. Those are all granulocytes, right? And the bands. What do the bands tell you?
Bands will basically represent the immature lymphocytes. Immature lymphocytes which are sent to fight the infection off.
So does that?
It just basically shows that the bone marrow is working well. Like it's the factory is okay.
Yeah. So, but it also, it's like, is it more likely to be a chronic or an acute if you have a lot of bands?
Based on bands, you cannot decide whether it's chronic or acute. I guess.
Yeah, I don't think you can checkmate know whether it's a chronic or an acute, but I think it can help you kind of decide if this is an early stage of the disease and the symptoms are just starting out that you might have an acute. Because like with CML, you might have like a lymphoblastic crisis, and you might have a bunch of new cells coming out, right? So, but like, why would we do an LAP?
To distinguish between leukemia and leukocyte reaction.
So if it was a leukemoid reaction, would it be elevated or decreased?
Yeah, leukocyte reaction will have elevated and CML will have decreased to normal.
Right. Right. So what are we thinking here, Vishwanath?
Leukocyte reaction, so to distinguish, like to confirm it, do LAP.
Do an LAP. All right.
And like, even the options we can rule out, like smudge cells can myeloblastic leukemia.
Right.
Acute lymphoblastic leukemia.
Right. So erythrocyte sedimentation rate.
ESR is not specific, so.
No, I think that's like, yeah, it's non-specific. It's also like maybe it's polycythemia vera. You know.
Yeah. Even ESR can be positive here if it's infection, but it's ESR and CAVFP protein is so non-specific, right?
Yeah, you can't really use it right now. Not that I can think of.
Of the chest, what like Hodgkin? What does it show actually?
Hodgkin lymphoma?
Okay.
What are you asking? Sorry.
No, yeah, I was asking actually, like MRI of the chest in this particular scenario, what they are trying to say.
Yeah, Asim, tell us kind of what are you thinking?
Yeah, so I didn't get through everything clear. So my first instinct the moment in someone like I didn't notice no weight changes thing. So yeah, I thought like my mind went to Hodgkin's because I also present with these symptoms quite often. So yeah, but yeah, now that you guys have explained everything, now B looks really
Looks good.
So yeah, I would choose B now.
So what would you choose if you were going to choose the Hodgkin's road?
Definitely not MRI. That's what was tripping me out. I would probably choose X-ray because that's or some other test. Just see any gaps, any lymph node. Exactly, CT. But definitely not MRI. So yeah, that's a negative point for Hodgkin.
Yeah, I mean, you might see like maybe primary, Hodgkin's in like the mediastinum. Sometimes it can show some cancer there.
But one thing like that what concerns me is, in the question they have asked the diagnostic test that would be helpful in distinguishing the patient's condition from pneumonia, not from leukemia.
Right.
Pneumonia can also have these LAP positive. No, that is a concern thing.
That's a very interesting point.
Like the question doesn't address how to distinguish between leukemia and leukomoria. Like they are asking how to distinguish between from pneumonia.
But they might also be saying you got congestion, you got a cough, you got a fever. You know, is this pneumonia?
It can be TB also, no?
Yeah. So it comes down to the wire, Vishnov. What do you want to choose? It's a difficult one.
I'll still go with the B option because of the band and the.
All right. Do you want to go green?
Yeah, let's go.
All right. Nice. All right, we did it. So let's read up after we didn't get any points here. So let's read up on. So if we all took too long as a group, but we would ordinarily get points. So LAP, leukocyte alkaline phosphatase, is an important laboratory value to distinguish chronic CML from leukoid reaction. We nailed this one. We explained it correctly, and then we talked about the others. So that's why we didn't get any points. I'm gonna go ahead. Let's answer another question. We'll get to stage 2 the right way. So who's next, Rowenda? Do we have
Dr. Nathan.
Dr. Nathan? You want to try one?
Yeah,
All right, let's do it. So, 35-year-old male.
to his primary care physician complaining of 1 month history of progressive worsening fatigue. He sought medical attention because this has affected his ability to complete his work as a graduate student. As a child, he was hospitalized for HUS. His past medical history is also notable for diabetes mellitus and obesity. He takes metformin and glycerine. He does not smoke and drink alcohol occasionally. His family history is notable for chronic CML in his paternal uncle and stroke in his father. His temperature is 99.9. Blood pressure 100 or 70, pulse 110, and then respirations are 80. Physical examination reveals diffuse failure. Hematological lab values are shown below. Hemoglobin. He has anemia, hematocrit is low. Leukocyte counts are normal. Platelet count is normal. MCV is also normal. And then reticulocyte is 0.4. Head and neck imaging is negative for neck masses. The pathogen associated with this patient's condition is also known to cause each of the following.
Yeah. So what are you thinking?
I need to see the question again.
Okay. Yeah. So we have CLL in the family. His pulse is elevated with a slightly, decreased diastolic blood pressure. Diffuse pallor, and he has anemia. He has a history of hemolytic uremia syndrome. So
they're basically talking about
he's 35, and he's a graduate student.
the reticulocyte count is low.
Yeah.
Corrected reticulocyte would be 0.4 into that would be low too. So the corrected reticulocyte is also low. So basically the bone marrow is not able to produce enough RBCs at this moment in time. So there's something going on with the bone marrow, probably a plastic phase secondary to parvovirus.
So let's go through these answer choices and talk about which pathogens there are, because that can be an enormous test-taking strategy. Just to limit your search for diagnoses, you can find the diagnosis by reverse engineering the answer choices. So, what causes myocarditis as a pathogen?
Any virus, Coxsackie-B virus.
Coxsackie-B is pretty famous. You can have adenovirus as well. There's a lot of viruses that can do it. Tuberculosis can do it. If you had lupus, you could get myocarditis, but that's not a pathogen-related situation. Um, erythema infectiosum, what causes that?
Again, a virus, I guess.
Parvovirus, right? B19. So what we would do is you'd go back and be like, all right, what causes hemolytic anemia, HUS? In addition to erythema infectiosum, in addition to myocarditis, and try to put them together. I don't like any of these sources of myocarditis as a source of HUS.
Yeah.
And so I can almost rule out A for stupid reasons, And not because they're obvious, but because they're not what they're getting at in terms of substance for the question. But what do you think about for B?
Yeah, as the people in chart are saying that the platelets are normal, so this couldn't be a case of parvovirus as well. So B would be ruled out as well.
All right. What about croup? What causes croup?
Croup is caused by H influenza, all the epiglottic. H influenza is the most common thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Kaposi sarcoma. Kaposi sarcoma.
That's the herpes 8 virus. That's the 8th herpes virus. Yeah. And so there are associations between Kaposi sarcoma, which is a purplish kind of lesion on your skin, and the development of cancer. And you'd be kind of immunocompromised, it would suggest, if you had Kaposi sarcoma potentially expressing itself on your skin. So Asim's thinking HIV causing the acute symptoms. So you'd be immunocompromised and then Kaposi sarcoma, which has, there might be an association between a familial CLL and a susceptibility to being immunocompromised for reasons outside of HIV even, potentially.
I'm thinking that would be like a red herring. Yeah, I'm thinking that you mentioned CLL and stroke, and thinking that would be something they use to force off. So that's why I'm kind of not factoring that into my decision making. Because it doesn't look like something. Because
yeah, I wasn't sure what they were getting at.
It's not even.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what they were getting at. This is an acute situation. The pulse is 110, so something's going on. Diffuse pallor. It seems like we probably have a hemolytic situation as well, given the hemoglobin. So some associations with HUS are like TTP and things like that. But things that can cause you to have HUS. One of the things that can cause you to have HUS is autoimmune disorders where you're attacking your own red blood cells, and if you had a cancer or if you had lupus, that can cause you to develop antibodies to your own red blood cells through the lysing of cells and exposure to proteins. And so that's something to consider. Mononucleosis is shared with Epstein-Barr virus, which can cause many cancers, including lymphoma. So and hairy cell leukemia and all sorts of associations with Epstein-Barr virus. So that's rare.
I'll stick with B only.
So what are you thinking? Well, I guess we have to answer.
I'll go for B only. I think it's parvovirus only.
You think it's parvo?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because if you had aplastic anemia, you're thinking? Like,
initially the RBCs will not be produced much because RBC is produced in abundance in the bone marrow. So if at all the bone marrow is affected, probably the RBCs could be affected first. Later on, as the case of the infection progresses, probably the other cells might be involved. Because the platelet count is almost on the lower side. If it is
let's give it a shot. This is a tricky one. What color do you want?
I'll go for green.
All right, let's do it. All right, we got it. All right, we got it. So, oh, I killed us. Oh no, my bad. All right, I'm gonna do something real quick to get us where we were anyway. I'm going to kill some enemies. You just get to watch enemy killing. 1 sec, and then we will evaluate that question, which shows some of the game's kind of ability to. I'm not able to attack him from that square. So I'll just show you what it's like to go to the next stage. It'll tell you how many questions you got right or wrong and the monsters you killed. But I'm gonna quit for a second. We can go back to that game in a second. I'm just gonna go to game reviews and show you that if you go to game logs, you can go down to your most recent game here and look at what you got right, what you got wrong, and we can look at this pure red cell aplasia. I'm sorry, I said aplasia. Aplasia is characterized by isolated decreases in erythrocytes and erythroid precursors. So parvo B19, thymoma, autoimmune conditions, anti-EPO. Welcome, Dr. Amaka. We're viewing a question here we just did. I hit a hotkey that killed us, but we're still going. So I think the point is that parvo B19 is known to cause PRCA, which is pure red cell aplasia. And it can also cause fifth disease. So that was the nature of that question. Is it's also causing that. Kaposi sarcoma is a malignant neoplasm of lymphocytic endothelial cells caused by the 8th herpes virus, as I was saying. Primarily affects AIDS patients. Can be seen sporadic causes primarily in older men and Mediterranean origin. So it's not associated with pure red cell anemia, so aplasia. So I think that's the main association is the reticulocyte count, as you were saying, Vishnav, and the hemoglobin being low in the context of platelets being normal and leukocytes being within normal range. So let's go back. Let's kill something. All right, so we're in stage 2 here, and we're going to answer a question. Dr. Amaka, you're probably getting a trial by fire because I just figure we'll just ask you a question if you don't mind. Can you turn on your camera as well?
Okay.
We'll just get you. We'll get a question if you want. We've been answering questions for the last hour or so. No worries. If you want to just do audio, we can do that later.
Alright, thank you.
All right. Would you like to read?
Okay, no problem.
So. Oh, great.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you're all good.
Okay. The 71-year-old man presents with chronic activity in he was previously able to walk 1 mile south of Kofi, but has recently lost the first step of breath after walking a few blocks. He also complains of a choking sensation when supine that is relieved by speaking up. Is medical diagnosis for coronary artery disease
So what are we thinking diagnostically? What are your thoughts, first of all? Don't diagnose right away. What are you thinking about what they told us so far?
Because initially I thought you were there because the person was having an MRI.
An MI. Yeah.
Yeah, like, yeah, very much. People like the people like that. But now that I'm seeing that the left is placed for of maximum import. So I'm thinking like something like the left of right after.
Yeah.
Like,
So what do you think about this choking sensation when supine, relieved by sitting up? What do you call that?
wait,
So I really like what Asim's saying about Ortner syndrome. Ortner syndrome has to do with a dilated left atrium that presses upon your laryngeal nerve and causes you to have like a kind of a hoarse voice, and it's like so Ortner syndrome is a consequence of mitral stenosis. But so Dr. Amaka, what are you thinking when you hear choking sensation when supine?
okay, maybe like orthopnea.
Orthopnea, right? Yeah, or like paroxysmal nocturnal dyspnea, kind of similar, where the increased venous return is not something that your heart can tolerate, and so you're getting pulmonary hypertension, which is causing a nervous reaction that causes you to feel short of breath and dyspneic. What do you think about this early diastolic gallop best heard over the apex?
Mitral stenosis.
You what?
Mitral stenosis.
So left lateral decubitus position, apex, so that is the mitral area, right? And it's an early diastolic gallop, best heard over the apex. So early diastolic, every diastolic murmur is pathological, it's not good, right? And there's only two really major, there's like three major diastolic murmurs. There's like, there's like two major diastolic murmurs. There's like aortic regurg and mitral stenosis, right?
Yeah.
And so, which do you think this is?
Mitral stenosis.
Mitral stenosis, maybe. So, with the aortic regurg, you'll see something like a very wide pulse pressure, and you might see bobbing pulse, and so let's think about these answer choices. Like, what is preserved ejection fraction and decreased compliance? What does that represent? That's like left heart failure.
Okay.
So left heart failure has to do with decreased compliance of the left ventricle. Diastolic blood comes in to fill the ventricle, and it hits a non-compliant left ventricle, causing a murmur. And so, what about B? Preserved ejection fraction. So preserved ejection fraction, that still reserves to left heart failure in normal compliance. So that's just maybe a normal heart. You know?
Yeah.
And then decreased ejection fraction and decreased left ventricular. We don't have a normal heart, that's for sure, because we know we have a diastolic murmur. It's not good, right? So decreased ejection fraction and decreased left ventricular and diastolic volume.
I think it's more because the right?
So end diastolic volume, what is like classic for decreasing your end diastolic volume? Welcome, Saeed. So end diastolic volume, if you had chronic hypertension, for example, you might have concentric hypertrophy, and that would cause your end diastolic volume to go down because you have a filling problem because the blood is trying to get into the ventricle, and you have so much heart muscle in the way that you actually don't have a reservoir for the blood to fill in diastole. And so you wind up with a decreased end diastolic volume. So that's a problem of filling, as opposed to a problem of fluid overload, which is right heart failure, where you have end diastolic volume that's enormous, but you don't have the contractility to get it out. And so in this situation, if we had, let's assume that we had a mitral stenosis, we might have a dilatation of the left atrium, and we would potentially have a decreased end diastolic volume because we're not getting blood through the mitral valve very easily. And so we don't want an increased left ventricular end diastolic volume in our answer choice. So we're down to C and D, right? So do we have an increased ejection fraction or a decreased ejection fraction is all we need to know, right? Would you expect this person has an increased or a decreased end diastolic volume? Decrease, right? If only because when they previously tried to walk around, they had kind of like tolerated exercise poorly. So that suggests that their ejection fraction is potentially not very good. So how confident do you feel like we are?
Yeah, we're confident.
Should we say red, yellow, or green?
Green.
Green. Okay. Before we do that, let's look at the photo, though. I'm cheating. I'm getting ahead of ourselves. So, is it going to show us the photo? All right. It's okay. So it's decreased ejection fraction, but it's also, so we got it wrong. So let's check why.
Why did we cancel? Oh, was B. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I got it wrong. You got it wrong. We all got it wrong. All right. So did anybody get it right?
I don't think so.
Did anybody expect it to be D? Oh, Asim did. Asim, do you want to talk about it a little bit?
They switched up the options, so I thought it was going to be A. Nathan got it right.
Ah, okay. Nithin, do you want to talk about it?
So the patient actually is a 71-year-old man. So he has shortness of breath, which has gone from grade 2 to grade 3 of dyspnea right now.
Nice.
And he has orthopnea, as well as he has history of pulmonary heart disease, diabetes mellitus, and then alcohol abuse. So alcohol-induced cardiomyopathy usually dilated, so the walls become very thin, and there will be congestive heart failure which will set in as a result of it.
Sorry, I'll be right back.
Yeah. So you're saying that this answer choice represents left-sided heart failure?
No, this actually represents the complete dilatation of the heart, because when you look at the examination findings, you have left-sided displaced point of maximal impact, as well as you have an early diastolic gallop. So early diastolic gallop is basically S3. S3 only.
Right.
S3. So S3 which is present in the left lateral decompressed position. So based on the age and the history with alcohol abuse, CAD and diabetes mellitus, I thought it was more of complete dilatation. So all the atria, the ventricles are completely dilated. So the patient will have reduced ejection fraction, as well as due to decreased compliance of the heart, there will be decreased pumping of the blood through the thing, so leading to increased diastolic volume at the end.
Yeah, I think you caught on to something that maybe Asim and I didn't, and Dr. Oh, I think she fell out, but I don't want to say her name incorrectly. But the doctor that we were just speaking to, answering this question, I think we missed the word gallop, because gallop will always refer to a heart failure, right? So if you see the word gallop, you do not have to consider a stenosis or a regurgitation event unless it's associated with a heart failure because you have an S3 or you have an S4. So I think that's really good thinking, Nithin. And so we're talking about, we're talking about an S3. So we're talking about fluid overload. We're talking about an inability to pump blood out of the right ventricle, right? Or even the left ventricle potentially. So it's congestive heart failure. And so you have left-sided congestive heart failure arises because of heart cannot pump blood effectively. So you get fluid overload. You get instead of concentric hypertrophy, you get in parallel. So you get asymmetric. Yeah. And so that's a great point. All right, so let's move towards. We got a goblin here. All right. So whose turn is it, Rowenda? Do you know? I think Saeed just got here, so we might let him try one.
Sure.
Okay. So Saeed, do you want to try one? Are you here? So Saeed, what I've been doing is I've been putting people in the waiting room if they don't have the audio visual stuff ready yet, and then you can just join right back in. So I'll see you in just a moment if you want. No, we're just going to randomize the answer choices. You're welcome to answer this question if you get it going. So I'll see you soon. So Rowenda, we might need a random.
Yes. Okay.
Vishnab. Okay. All right.
Yes, sir.
All right. Let's try one here. I'm gonna attack this this goblin real quick. Let's try a new one. Upgrade, just so we have something to attack with here. All right. And so, all right, here we go. Stool sample.
Okay. So a stool sample was taken from a 19-year-old man who presented with profuse watery diarrhea. He recently returned from a trip to Central America. A microbiologist identified the causative agent as gram-negative, oxidase positive, comma-shaped bacteria that is able to grow well in a pH greater than 8. Which is the following mechanism of the toxin produced by the bacteria.
Right.
This is Vibrio, no?
So gram-negative, oxidase positive, comma-shaped bacteria. What are you thinking?
Vibrio.
Yeah. So which corresponds to that? So let's talk about what does A represent?
Overactivation of guanylate cyclase.
Yeah. Does A represent Shiga toxin? Is that right? It's been a while since step 1. Asim might help me out. What is guanylate cyclase? Huh?
It's one of the two mechanisms of the E. coli virus that causes watery diarrhea.
Is that EHEC?
Yes. No, that's E-Tech.
E-Tech.
E-Tech is like the bloody diarrhea. Yeah. E-Tech is watery diarrhea.
Right. So it's similar to like if you had cholera, but in terms of it's a like osmotic diarrhea.
Yep.
Okay, and so then B, what does B represent?
Yeah, B would likely be Vibrio because Vibrio increases CAM, so CAM increases, adenylate cyclase increases.
Right.
CAM potentially be the answer, yeah. It is probably.
It's probably B?
Yeah, it is probably.
Okay, so Asim, are you thinking B or C?
I think C will be because I watched that like dumb sketchy medicine video recently
Ah,
where they had that whole like camp with the military things and stuff.
yeah.
And one of the memory hooks was like you gotta think of GI as like like a GI like a
Oh,
army dude, So
military GI.
yeah, so that's why exactly that's why I kind of remember the army police is cholera and that has the GI. Yeah, so that's why I'm pretty sure it should be C.
Yeah, because when you say Vibrio, you're saying Vibrio cholera, and it's the inhibition that causes the ADP ribosylation
Classic camp. Yeah.
reaction. Yeah. Do you agree with that, Vishyanab, or you want to go with B?
Like according to what I remember, it's still GS. I don't know. It's been a long while. I don't know.
Okay, well we're going with your answer. So, what confidence do you want?
Still green. Like it's just a memory thing, no? So I can like if it's right, it is right. So I don't
Right.
think this is like mechanism based. So let's go for green.
Let's go for broke. All right, I agree with you, Asim. I think I remember the GI, but let's give it a shot here. Okay, all right. So you're green. All right. So let's see why Vishyanov got us. Yeah. All right. So ordinarily we would have an illustration here. Next week we certainly will see some improvements in the software. Um, so cholera is right. We got comma shaped is a great hint there for Vibrio, and then it's gram negative. Um, Facultative anaerobe, so ADP ribosylation GS subunit, permanent activation, thus overactivation of. So I think, Asim, I could be wrong, that the GI refers to pertussis. Is that possible? I could be wrong, but let me
Yeah,
see.
I think you may be.
Ah.
You may be like, yeah.
Yeah. So pertussis also does a weird thing where the GI affects the lymphocytes as well. I want to say.
Yeah, now it's coming back to me. I
Yeah,
didn't think
that
of
is a step one. Yeah, but you still need it for step two. So it's good to review these and get the dust off. So GS is going to be your. So this is really interesting. GM1 ganglioside is also implicated in lipid storage disorder. So intestinal epithelium, a subunit enters the cells and ADP ribosylates in GS subunit. All right. So very well done. That was good, Vishwanath. Let's kill a goblin. So we hit him to very little effect because we need better spells right now. But we're just demonstrating the game. How do you guys feel about doing like maybe two more questions? Sound good? All right, let's do it. Well, we're getting attacked by two things right now, so we're gonna die anyway. But so Rowenda, who do you think?
Asim.
Asim, okay. So Asim, I'll tell you what, Asim, we're no longer competitive because I killed our character. So I want to show you guys the software a little better than I have been. So what I'm going to do is open a newer version of the software, and that will allow us to just get a view of what has changed since last week. Yeah, here we go. So the question format looks a little better now, and we'll have illustrations now, so that's a little better. So Asim, do you want to try it?
Yeah, it's not. Oh yeah, it just popped up. Yeah. So a scientist is studying influenza A virus. Focuses on two strains. One from humans H3N1, and one from horses H3N8. He takes cells from chickens and co-infects these cells with both influenza strains. From these chicken cells, the scientist isolates a new strain and finds that this new strain can infect human
get all the fun ones.
Okay.
Um,
Um,
so let's start off. Let's start off basic principles of virology. What does hemagglutinin do for an influenza virus as far as binding?
um, yeah, hemagglutinin makes it bind, so it enters the cell, and then when they cleaves off the pus, then it leaves. So yeah, they kind of, and those are the main two things that we have drugs against, like in target influenza virus.
Exactly. Getting into the cell and getting out of the cell. Right?
Yep.
So what best describes the process underlies these experimental results? So I think, yeah, so what are you thinking about?
So I'm thinking that you basically combine two strains and they basically like exchange DNA, right?
Right.
They exchange like parts. So it's not shift and drift because that's the usual process. That's when like the genome kind of like reassorts and like changes.
That's when you have a Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium, and then so you have all this, yeah.
Yeah. Those questions. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So now moving on. So transduction, transformation, and conjugation. These are the three like mechanisms through which viruses do this.
What is transformation?
Transformation is naked DNA uptake. So if you have like naked DNA floating around, but yeah, that's not going to work when you have two different strains. Like,
Exactly.
Like it's not naked DNA. And conjugation, I think I'm pretty sure that involves I'm pretty sure it's the bits with like that's how they exchange DNA.
Right.
So I would say it's transduction because they didn't mention this or anything. So it's
Right.
not conjugation, so I would go with transduction.
I couldn't have put it better myself. I think that's the way that I would have answered that question in terms of ruling things out. And I think transduction is just the only one that deals with viral DNA strain mixing. Of all of these, that's about it. Except genetic shift and genetic drift can take place in the context of a non-selective environment. But this is a description of transduction, I would say. So let's give it a shot. What are you thinking? Green or?
Yeah, I would go for green.
All right. Oh my God. Okay. All right. So it is shift, but it's probably. So I love this question because we got so much out of it and we still got it wrong, so we get to think about it. Yeah. So. Envelope negative ssRNA virus, right? So it's a negative sense virus. So yeah, so that has to do with the how the RNA is codified. If it's negative sense, then it doesn't need to be converted into positive sense, right? In order to be read and transcribed, or I should say translated into a protein. Is that the way to think about it, or is it positive sense? Let's find out real quick. So I think we're creating a new viral subtype without genetic pressures. Do you know what I mean by genetic pressure?
Yeah, like I have a rough idea. I'm not exactly.
Yeah. So a selective pressure is quite literally a thing that kills an organism. So a selective pressure in genetics is just referring to a pressure is just a thing that would kill organisms, and so sexual selection is not a pressure. A pressure is like a predation or infection or illness. You had a genetic predisposition to avoid predation or to avoid insult or injury or infection, then you're protected against a selective pressure. And so in genetic drift, you have have no selective pressures, or you might be having competing selective pressures, but the genetic drift is caused by the kind of Darwinian distribution of traits on like a Punnett square, where that distribution of genetic heritability is just running rampant in a society where you're getting a larger preponderance of certain genotypes, and that larger preponderance of those genotypes causes you to have a prevalence of that genetic characteristic, which has not become more prevalent as a result of selective pressures. And so, in terms of shift, I need to reintroduce myself to the difference between shift and drift. I'm having trouble remembering the difference. Genetic shift can lead to rapid changes in influenza virus by creating new viral subtypes. People who have not encountered new subtypes may have immunity against them. So I remember that one of the important things for step 1 was that genetic shifts cause epidemics, but genetic drift cause pandemics. So a shift is a less dramatic population-wide change than drift, right?
I think you got it the other way around.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure.
Oh, okay.
Shift, a pandemic is like worldwide, right?
Oh, okay.
A shift is like, I'm pretty sure I remember from step 1, a shift is when you have all these different segments of influenza rearranging themselves to make a new influenza virus. So it's kind of like we've never seen before.
Great.
Drift is when you're slowly drifting away from the original subtype, so it causes like only local like outbreaks.
So like that would be like yeah, like not even epidemic yet, but like maybe like what is the regional, where you have a regional anyway, so it's epidemic as opposed to pandemic. Shift is pandemic and drift is epidemic. Okay. Yeah, so that makes sense because the avian flu was an epidemic caused by what they're saying is a genetic shift. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great question to have right before your exam, because that's the sort of stuff that separate people out. So 2 viruses and co-infect, same cell. Do you guys feel good about that material yet? Or should we talk a little more? Nithin was saying maybe genetic drift was the answer. Yeah, lost step 1 knowledge is right. These are step 1, a little bit step 1 heavy, but I think that's not so bad on test day to get some reintroduction. This is a step 2 question, but I'm going to flag that for later and think about it. But so it's negative sense, which I'm not sure if that means that it lends itself to this answer choice. I'll be honest with you. I don't want to speak more on this subject than we've already have, because I don't yet fully understand.
Yeah, it's a really difficult question. It's
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. It's one of those questions that's probably gonna trip people up.
Yeah. So let's move. We're gonna move here. All right. So so who's next, Rwanda? Do we have? This is probably the last question. Nithin, all right, let's do it. All right, we got a figure too.
One day old newborn is evaluated in neonatal intensive care unit for respiratory distress. He was born at 34 weeks of gestation to a mother with gestational diabetes who had limited prenatal care. His initial flash scores were 5 at 1 minute and 7 at 5 minutes. Over the first day of life, he has become increasingly tachypnic with practical contractions. The chest radiograph is obtained with the findings shown in the which of the following is most likely under cause of the patient symptom.
So this is the X-ray. We finally have images working. So what are you thinking here? So let's do a systematic. So we have A for airway, So do you see the trachea? Kind of hard, right?
There's actually gas bubbles, gas,
Yeah.
what do you call it, in the thorax.
What do you think is going on in there?
Basically, the organs of the gastrointestinal system is pushed towards the thoracic thing.
Yeah. So we're talking about you know, these are abdominal organs in the thoracic cavity, right? Yeah. So kind of a diaphragmatic herniation, because the only thing separating the abdomen and the thorax is the diaphragm. So we have a 1-day-old with intestines where his lung should be. So not great. I think that's probably the best take-home message here in this slide for sure. So what are you thinking in terms of diagnosis or answer choices?
I'll go with option C.
Pleuroperitoneal membrane defect. Yeah, that's a very tempting. So let's talk about that's. I paused it so we can talk about the answer choices real quick. So what does deficient surfactant production suggest?
That leads to ARDS.
Exactly. So what about endocardial cushion defect?
Endocardial cushion defect would be to ASD, VSD.
Yeah, VSD, probably trisomy 21, you know, related potentially, or potentially DiGeorge syndrome, and then systemic infection from vaginal flora.
This is streptococcal bacteria.
If you had like a PID, pelvic inflammatory syndrome, disease, then you could have, you know, congenital disorders as a result, and chlamydia and things like that can cause problems. I'm not sure how related it is to a peritoneal defect. I mean, sorry, a diaphragmatic herniation, but I need to think about that. But genetic abnormality, we talked about DiGeorge a little bit, but I'm trying to think about diaphragmatic herniation in the context of genetic abnormality. So how confident are you?
Green.
Green? All right, let's do it. All right, we get our last question right. That feels good. So let's attack them, even though we're not doing very much damage with these spells. I'm going to work on that. So thank you so much for participating and coming today, guys, and sticking through these questions. It's so much fun to play the game and answer questions with you guys. So I hope you get a lot out of it. I mentioned at the end just passively that we do have donations as an option, but don't feel pressure to do that. I don't lean on anybody or resent the fact that people aren't donating. You can come every week and not donate. And tell your friends if they're actually preparing for step 2 and they're not just med students, because I'm trying to get USMLE prep and step 1 prep people involved with the group. And so next week we'll have some updates as well and some more functionality. Eventually we'll have multiplayer, and you guys will be some of the first recipients of access to that. So so good luck, very much good luck, Asim, on your test soon, and hope to see you guys next week. Thank you so much. Thank you, Rowenda, as well. Everybody thank Rowenda at some point.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Nice to meet you all.
Yeah. All right. Well, have a great day. See you guys next week, hopefully.
Bye.
Bye.